Also today, moderate Muslims here in the U.S. launching a plan to name and shame Islamic extremists living in their communities. A direct response to the deadly attack in San Bernardino. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy and a former U.S. Navy lieutenant commander, with me from his hometown of Phoenix, Arizona. How are you, doctor, and good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
I'm just curious, coming off of France, first of all, do you think we have been honest in admitting the number of sympathizers to the extreme Islamic cause that exists not just in the Middle East, but all throughout Europe and here at home in the U.S.? Yes or no on that?
No, we have not. And the reason we engage this Muslim reform movement is both sides of the political spectrum, by lumping Islam all as one, have prevented the best tool we have in strategy. We are at war, Bill. And we need in America warriors for ideas of freedom within the Muslim community. And many of us are ready to be those warriors if we can be enabled to admit that Islamism needs reform against it. We need to separate mosque and state. So we got together and said, listen, if you want to operationalize a strategy to counter not just the last militant few days when they grab weapons and put on the soldier's uniform, what about when they're putting on the jerseys and they're cheering on anti-Americanism, anti-Semitism? That's all the milieu of radicalization that, until the West gets in this war and enables moderate Muslims like us to have a seat at the table, we are going to continue to lose miserably to this whack-a-mole program.
So when you hear people like Donald Trump talking about checking Muslims at the door, essentially, as a Muslim yourself, are you offended by that? Is that racist speak?
Well, you know, what's in his heart, I don't know. I mean, obviously, we need to put a pause button on all immigration. We're not filtering for jihadist ideology. Our two-page declaration could be used as a center point for what we should filter against. Equality of men and women, the denial of the Islamic State, all inspiration for Islamo-patriotism and violent jihad. But when people like Mr. Trump or Hillary Clinton speak of Islam as one monolith, whether it be peaceful or whether it all be militant, we surrender. We surrender the greatest weapon we have against radical Islam, which is Muslims that believe in the secular national state of liberty, of freedom, like America, like Europe. And that's why last week we had our Muslim Reform Summit. We started the Muslim Reform movement. It's bipartisan. It should be embraced by both Hillary and any candidates on the right. It's not a partisan issue. We're for progressive values, and yet the regressive left is all embracing Islamism, and some on the right, unfortunately, are surrendering the greatest weapon we have in America, which is religious freedom.
You wrote the book, right? The Battle for the Soul of Islam?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you've been living your life dedicated to this. And when people on the outside wonder why more folks like yourself are not speaking out, they wonder why. And that goes back to my question about whether or not there are more sympathizers than we care to admit. Because perhaps, please explain and clarify, perhaps there are those who find justification in these acts. Because they feel like it's a war against their faith. And anytime they feel that way, they're going to fight back. So now you have this campaign about name and shame. Now, where does that go, Doctor?
Well, the reason we want to name and shame is our declaration we want to take to every mosque in the country, every Islamic organization. We ask people to take our Muslim Reform Movement declaration, talk to your Muslim neighbors, your communities, ask them, will they sign a declaration that all violent jihad is bad? Men and women should be equal. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We're against blasphemy laws. I mean, this PC culture is basically blasphemy laws that we can't speak against Islamism globally. So bottom line is it's not just naming and shaming, but it also lifts up reformists as having a seat at the table. And if we want a strategy, we want a thoughtful, long-term strategy for reform, Muslims need a tough love. Yes, a love that we're part of the American fabric and we serve in our military and we love this society and the principles, but tough in that we're not going to be surrendering to jihadists and Islamists as representing Muslim communities, and it's time to own it. And we've not called on Muslims to do that.
Just quickly, in the 15 seconds left, I've known you for a number of years. Do you feel there's a change happening within the community or not?
We do. I mean, the gig is up on the press release condemnations of violence. We now are taking this as warriors for the ideas of Americanism and Westernism, and I think many Muslims are beginning to say the other Islamist groups, we've had it with them, they're apologists. It's time for real reforms and owning the problem, and that's what our Muslim Reform Movement is about.
Thank you, Doctor. Born in Syria. Thank you for your time.
I was born in the U.S. My family's
that's right.
Syria.
Yeah, Syrian. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Zuhdi Jasser there in Phoenix, Arizona.